It's my birthday on Monday. I'm going to be 59 years old. And I wonder, how in the world did I get to be 59 years old? How did it go by so fast? And I don't have to tell you this, do I? Whatever age you are, when your birthday comes around, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You might be thinking, how did I get to be 30? How did I get to be 92? How did I get to be 44 years old? It all seems to go by in a flash. I remember being 16 years old at Douglas County High School in Castle Rock, Colorado, sitting in the classroom, looking at that white and black clock on the wall, waiting for the end of the school day. And I can tell you that clock could not have gone any slower. It wouldn't have been possible. It was like that secondhand tick, tick, tick. And it was like in the movies where it starts ticking backwards. Like unbelievable. How did it go so slow? But you know how this works. Sometime after you're 16 years old, I don't know when it happens or exactly how, but somewhere along the line, life kicks into overdrive. And it goes so fast, you can't believe it. I'm Tim Selby from Heart of Steamboat. I appreciate you joining me. I'm hanging out at the river today, just scaring some fish on a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. So I want to tell you about the time I killed my neighbor. The pastors aren't supposed to kill your neighbor, right? That's not what the scriptures tell us to do, is it? But it's a bit of a tragic story. There was somebody was killed in the accident, tragically, and the person who was killed in the accident had the same first name as a kid who grew up next door to me. He was an adult now, didn't live in that house anymore, but still lived in the community. They had the same first name. And now when I'm doing a memorial service or somebody's passed away, I never put any memorial notices or do any of that stuff for the newspaper. Typically the funeral home or somebody else does that. I don't do that. But this time, for some reason, I had to do it. Now, these two people had the same first name, and their last names were the same, had the same letters, but just like in a different way. You can see where this is going. So I put it in the newspaper with the wrong name. Oh, can you believe it? I still can't believe it. So this kid who grew up next door to me had people calling him to see if he was still here. Like, are you here? What's going on? Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Now I screw up a lot of things. I'm really good at messing things up. This one though, to use the phrase, I wanted to crawl under a rock, would not have been nearly good enough to describe the way I was feeling in the aftermath of this. His parents, who still live next door to me, were very gracious about me writing off their son. He was actually very gracious about me trying to send him out a little bit too early. But the tragedy of the story was somebody had lost their life, and their life ended far too soon. And this young man had to talk about death and ponder his own death in a way that he had never anticipated. But that's kind of how life is, isn't it? Life and death. It's a mystery. It's uncertain. Now, that young man might have wanted to use the famous phrase from Mark Twain when Mark Twain said, "The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated." He could have used that phrase at that time. So I want to read one scripture to you today. And this particular scripture comes from the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes is a part of the Old Testament literature, and this particular book is part of what's known as the wisdom literature in the Old Testament. And this particular writer, we don't really know who wrote this book of Ecclesiastes. Oftentimes it's been attributed to Solomon, but it probably came along long after the time of Solomon. In the scripture itself, the writer is referred to as Koheleth, or what's called teacher. So the teacher offers some words of wisdom, and the words in this book are really interesting. They sort of come out of a place of despair when the author wonders, what does it all matter? What does it mean? What's going on here? Have you ever had those feelings? Well, if you've had those feelings, you might want to read the book of Ecclesiastes. But there's this one sentence in Ecclesiastes that's really kind of interesting. It says this: the teacher, Koheleth, says, "It's good to be alive. It's nice to see the light from the sun. You should enjoy every day of your life no matter how long you live. But remember, you will die, and you will be dead much longer than you've been alive. It's a little bit of a harsh statement, isn't it? But it's true. It's good to be alive, be in the sun, enjoy every day, because you're going to die one day. And that's going to be for a long time, whatever it is that comes next. Saint Benedict, who founded many of the, one of the monastic orders, the Benedictines, and many monks came in the tradition of Saint Benedict. He said this. He said that those who followed him should hold death in their eyes every single day. And Thomas Merton, probably the most famous of the American monks, said this: if somebody wanted to be a monk and he did not hold before him death in his eyes each day, if he did not see death as it is and understand his own life objectively in the light of death, then he couldn't be a monk. It was that important to be able to understand and to face the reality of death in our lives. All of us have a death day awaiting us. All of us will leave this place one day. I hope that on the day that I die, I hope there's a beautiful sunset. I would love that. But if there's not, that's okay, because there will be another one really soon. It's how it is for all of us, isn't it? And I hope that on the day that I die, that those who love me would take a deep breath and realize it's going to be okay. It'll be painful. Tears will flow, but it's going to be okay. We all live and die. We have time here on earth, maybe a lot, maybe a little, we don't know. And then one day our life here ends and we enter into whatever it is that comes next. We all live and die, every single one of us. And it seems to pass by in the blink of an eye, just like the summertime does. I'm here on a beautiful August day, but you can already start to feel that it's changing a little bit as the summer, like our lives, goes by so fast. And so this happens to me every year. School starts on Monday. On my birthday, school starts. So every year when my birthday comes around, it's also feeling like the end of summer. It's like, how did the summer go by so fast? How did 59 years go by so fast? It all makes me think, oh my gosh, we've got to live. We've got to embrace life because it's so quick. So there's a little bit of melancholy in this time of year. And the scripture writer, the teacher, says, it's good to be alive. You should enjoy every single day of your life. One way to say that is the phrase carpe diem, to seize the day. In the great movie Dead Poets Society, Robin Williams, who's a professor, uses that phrase to talk to his students. He takes them to a wall that's got the black and white pictures of classes that came long before this class of young men who stand before him right now. And he says to look at those pictures, to look at those faces, young men just like they are, filled with life and strength and vigor and energy, everything out there in front of them. And he says now they're food for the daffodils. Their day has passed by. And he encourages them as they lean in and look at those pictures. And it's pretty cool because they can see their own reflection, their own young reflection, and the reflection of these other young men's faces, as he reminds them this phrase, carpe diem, to seize the day. And he uses a bit of poetry with them. The poet who says this: gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Old time is still a-flying. The same flower that smiles today, tomorrow it will be dying. We have a part to play in the great symphony of life. We get to play one little note, and what a beautiful thing it is to play a note in the symphony of life. You know, on Christmas Eve, we light candles in the sanctuary. We make something beautiful happen there together when we all light our candles. And you know what? I light a candle too, but if I wasn't there, it wouldn't matter. It would be just as beautiful. And yet, for me to have my chance to light that candle, to hold that light in my hand, to hold that light up high, to take that light out into the darkness and place it in the snow, oh, what a gift that is. And I would never, ever take that for granted. And I think this little scene kind of highlights the dialectic of how we are so small in the big scheme of things, just one little piece. And yet, at the same time, our lives are so important and so meaningful. One of the ways we might see this principle is in what's known as the omnicentric universe. Omnicentric means all things at the center. And the cosmologist Brian Swimme writes and teaches about this notion of omnicentricity. And what this means is, like, we know, right? We know that the universe is expanding in all directions. The universe, and as it expands, the rate of expansion gets faster, not slower, which is beautiful and mysterious, and we don't really understand how this works. But if I was standing right here by the Elk River and I measured the universe, all the universe would be expanding away from me in every direction. Now, if it's all expanding away from me in every direction, that would seem to put me at the center of it all. And yet, if somebody, just like me, is standing far across the universe in a completely other galaxy by another beautiful river, and they did the same calculations, they would find that the universe is expanding away from them in all directions. It's the idea that to be in this universe is to be at the center of all things. It's hard for our minds to grasp what that means. And there's a couple ways to interpret that. One way would be to say, you know what, well, maybe I guess nothing's special because it's all the same. But I would choose to look at that a little bit differently and to say that everything is special because everything seems to be at the center, at the very heart of the universe. It's that important. It's that beautiful. All of this is a gift. So I hope that you can hear these words of the teacher reminding you to embrace every day. I hope you don't let this summer pass you by without taking a moment to watch the sunlight glisten off the water of the river, to listen to the sounds of the Spirit as it moves by, to ponder the grace of the birds that float above us, to smell those wild roses in the forest or those beautiful roses that might be in yours or somebody's garden. It's so beautiful. Don't let it slip by. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says, run while you have the light. Run while you have the light of life so that the darkness may not overtake you. Isn't that a beautiful phrase? Run while you've got the light of light so that darkness may not overtake you. Let's run with the light in this life that we love. Let's run with the beauty and the grace of God. Let's be reminded to embrace each moment, to love those around us, to speak words of kindness and goodness into the world, and bless people with all that we do. Whatever year of life you're in, may you be filled with goodness and blessings this day and all your days to come. Thanks for joining me.